Love the optimism, but in my experience, when it looks bad, it's usually worse. Here's your look at the Hot Toys Spider-Man Advanced Suit 6-scale figure. When a new villain threatens New York City, Peter Parker and Spider-Man's worlds collide. To save the city and those he loves, he must rise up and be greater. The product code for the Advanced Suit Spider-Man's VGM031, and if you're looking to pick up this one for yourself, you can swing on over to www.alteregocomics.com. First thing we're going to do is measure off to the very top of the Advanced Suit Spider-Man. I know I'm a bit behind on this one, but still nonetheless, I really wanted to weigh in my opinions on such a cool looking Spider-Man 6-scale figure. To start everything off, let's look at the measurements, and you're looking at the figure of the Advanced Suit Spider-Man standing 11.8 inches in height, and that in centimeters works out to be 30 centimeters exactly. 30 centimeters for Spider-Man here. Next thing we'll talk about is the display stand that comes included with Spidey, and you get yourself a hexagonal stand featuring the new Spider-Man game logo. I can't help but think that this logo was inspired by the original Amazing Spider-Man costume design, especially when we start seeing it here on his costume. The actual base itself is relatively quite small. Normally, when you see Spider-Man, they have the baseball-shaped diamond stand, but they ended up going with something a little bit smaller here. Based on the slight limitations that unfortunately this figure also possesses, you can't get into any crazy poses, so surprisingly enough for its size, such the small footprint that it is, you really can't get the figure to be put in a position anyways where the stand's going to teeter, or fall over. Attaching to the base, and I use the term very loosely, the base is attached only by this circular section here, but there's nothing that actually catches it when you put it in. I feel it sits a little too loose for my liking, and it does have the adjustable neck, so you can move and manipulate it any which way that you want. Granted, still, again, you can't really do too much with this costume. We'll talk about that also in a second as well, but I'm really disappointed by how loose this sits. I'm sure it's a small talking point over the scope of what will be the rest of this review, but it just seems like it should catch on a little bit better than what it does, and especially for a character that you want to be putting into some sort of dynamic flight poses. You really want, at the very least, this to be the most stable thing and secure. At the very least, you wouldn't want this to be popping out. So far, I haven't had that happen, and let's just hope, knock on wood, that continues to be the case with Spider-Man's base here. Drawing your attention also, just behind the display stand, Spider-Man also comes included with one of those cardboard displayers. Ah yes, those cardboard displayers. Good if you have the space, Bad if you like the way that the back looks and you really just don't have the space. Generally, I put a lot of the figures into detolfs, and detolfs, just by their nature, don't really have a whole lot of back clearance. The squares themselves, each of the individual shelves, only really stores to the figure and just a little bit higher than that. This base itself, well, the back board, as you can see, it's about a third of the figure, even taller than that, possibly even a quarter or so. The base itself is really nice. I keep saying base. This back board is really quite nice. Assembly always can be problematic. I actually found, if anything, this one would be one of the easier ones that I had to put together. I like it. It's not overly distorted, not the problem that Thanos had, for example, from the Infinity War. So I really like this. I like it, but unfortunately, I just simply don't have the space afforded to actually put something like this out, unless I really plan on putting a lot of my figures on shelving, which is something I've really contemplated for how good some of these actually end up looking. A couple things we can quickly talk about before we move on to the accessories and all that fun stuff. Inside the flapped sleeve of the box, you'll actually get yourself a little sticker. You know how I'm all for stickers. I don't really know specifically whereabouts I can put this, but I suppose you could probably put it above a light source. Not on a light source, but above a light source where it might be able to project the webbing on the wall. You probably even put that in front of something as well. But it is sticky. Vinyl certainly would have worked as well, because you could actually put it behind Spider-Man on a detolf without actually having to worry about residue being left behind. But again, it's a nice little added something that you can get with the figure. Whether you use it or not, it's entirely up to you. Likelihood, I probably won't be using this at all, but I just wanted to show you what it looked like. And the fact that it comes included when you get the figure for yourself. Speaking of also included, and not likely maybe something you may be displaying the figure with, he comes with Spidey Sense. The Spidey Sense actually does have a little layer of plastic you may want to just peel off onto the back. It makes an otherwise slightly smokier see-through plastic even more clear and easier to see through. Like I said, it's just done in plastic. There's nothing overly complicated with it, but what you can do is when you first get it out, just get the figure to stand firmly flat, it looks like this. And all you have to do is just fold it down, kind of just bend it on what seems almost to be a natural bend line there, and you get something that looks like this. It kind of looks like movie Sorceress from the movie Masters of the Universe. Kind of, she had like a crown like that. Anyways, we're going to go ahead and take the figure and just pop the head off, just like so. And then all you have to do is just take this and you fit it underneath the ball joint. Couldn't be any bit easier than that. Once it's fit in place, it does kind of look like the headdress from the Sorceress, doesn't it? Then you go ahead and just replace the head, just pop it back into place. Watch, be mindful of the eyes, mindful of the eyes, mindful of the eyes. And there you've got Spider-Man with his Spidey Sense. It doesn't look all that bad, really, and when you flip it around, you sort of see how everything comes together. It's tucked underneath there, stays kind of clean. Even if you look at it from the back, it doesn't look like it's simply just been stuck to the back torso or the head of Spider-Man. And overall, like I said, it doesn't look too bad. Like the back card that we looked at earlier, though, I don't know if I actually see myself really using this. I like the fact that it's incorporated, and it does look neat. But at the end of the day, it does sort of limit Spider-Man. And it perhaps also draws attention, unneeded attention to Spider-Man, where maybe all your other Spider-Man figures don't necessarily have this. If you really wanted to, I guess you could make use of this for other Spidey 6-scale figures if you wanted to. But again, it's just something that comes included with the figure, if you so wish to display him with it. There's a fair bit to cover when it comes to Spidey's accessories, so we'll have a look at those right now. First and foremost, it comes included with the Spider Drone, a nice faithful recreation of the one that we got from the game. Honestly speaking, I haven't played the game as nearly as much as I really would want to. Time and, of course, responsibilities bog me down, and I'm unable to spend as much time playing video games as I certainly would wish. But from what I have played of the game, I really quite have enjoyed the open world that this Spider-Man PS4 game does bring to it. And in the game, you do get yourself the Spider Drone. Here we get a nice faithful recreation of that done in a very nice metallic cranberry red. Ooh, using those colors of food. On the underside, we've got a silver bottom base, and each of the individual coiled legs does have posability. Not much in the way of posability, and to be honestly speaking, while I am rotating the legs, some of them crack, some of them making little noises that I do get a little worried that I'm going to ultimately break off one of them. Like I said, the articulation, I really honestly don't even need articulation when it comes to something like this. Leave it off completely if you need to, because at the end of the day, really, what are you going to do? Manipulate these legs and then do what with it? Yeah, that's what I thought. The figure also includes some Spidey signals, and they are done like these little discs. And again, on the back, they've been painted in almost a gunmetal silver gray. That's a combination of the same sort of things together. Some texturing has been done to it, and I like the mesh that they've incorporated over top of the eyes of little Spider-Man's faces. So those are really cool that he comes included with something like that. Moving along, he does come with a series of webs. Now, each of the web shooters seem unique to one another, and of course, some of them in the game do vary, that they're not exactly the exact same. Well, they're not the exact same to one another. There are some like concussive blasts and some electricity web shooters. I think these ones are the concussive blasts, if I'm not mistaken. The bands themselves are pretty much identical to one another. It's really only this section here that changes from one another. In fact, let me just grab another one so I can show you what the differences are between them. Perhaps this could be the regular shooters. These could also even be the electricity shooters as well, but you can see the difference between them. The immaculate level of detail that Hot Toys puts into their pieces for the very fact that you can get interchangeable web options, not simply just defaulting to, say, this one. If you decide you want to have your Spider-Man wearing a different web shooter, by all means, you can certainly do that. And each one of them seems, if I spin these around, do have their own supplied holes. So when we eventually look at the webs, for example, surprising you quickly with one of them, you can attach any one of the webs to any one of the shooters. So that's really cool that they come included with those. If you so enjoy using the web bombs in the game, well, you'll be happy to know that Hot Toys also includes the web bombs, the web grenades, as part of the included list of accessories. And yes, the accessories continue to churn through. Done once again this kind of cranberry red color with the glowing, almost orbs of eyes, these glowing, staring eyes back at you. These are done in like a really nice ice blue color. Dig in the look of these. You want to be very, very careful, of course, you don't lose those. Something else that Spider-Man could potentially lose, or you could lose if you're not careful, is he comes included with his phone. They've got even right down to the side here. I'm not sure if you can see it or not. They've even got the little volume controls on the sides. They've got the camera located on the back. And they even have the little power button, I think, right down there as well. I mean, the smallest of details, minus for the fact that it doesn't have anything actually on the screen. Other than that, I don't think you could get a more closer representation of an actual phone, something designed, of course, for a 1/6 scale figure. And it's really not to say as well that you have to limit your options for displaying a figure with this phone to be only Spider-Man. By all means, you could really use this phone for any various other 6 scale figures on the market as well. Getting a little slightly smaller with the accessories, he also comes with the Vulture Jammer. This is done in a yellow plastic with some additional painted details that are done in black. I think the only thing it's actually omitting is the number 11. Written, I think it's just along the top section right here. But other than that, they couldn't have got it any bit closer in smaller scale than what they actually have done right here. So really, again, small. It's very, very tiny, and the hardest part, if anything, was trying to find a hand that could possibly suit and hold it. Well, there's one of these hands here that is really designed for, if you look at it right here, the hole for holding one of the webs. It's the closest thing I've been able to find that actually supports and holds both the Vulture Jammer as well. Let me just take this off right here, as well as the phone. And you can put that right in there. I mean, in fact, a lot of people look at their phones this way. This would probably be the best suited hand, I think, for holding both of those accessories. Trip mines, get your trip mines here. He does actually have 2 trip mines, and these are actually magnetic. They're not magnetic to one another. In fact, putting the forces together, you'll be so compelled to be pushed away. These are actually repelling pulls, and I think that actually means like pulls attract, or is it unlike pulls attract? Needless to say, though, the repelling nature of these particular magnets tell you that they're not supposed to be attached to one another. However, if you got like little clippers here, which I happen to use for like clipping twist ties and stuff like that for figures, you'll see that they are magnetized, so they can attach to any metallic, obviously metal surfaces. These are done in the same carryover colors. The calling cards, it seems, for all the accessories that we've looked at is the same dark red coloring with the blue interior. In fact, actually, these mirror the grenades, though not quite obviously in shape. They are really nicely detailed. You can see the individual leg struts sort of suspending them upright, waiting for some unsuspecting criminal to be running past them. And then last but certainly not least, I know obviously somebody has been asking this whole time, what about the Spider-Man plush? Well, he does also come included with that as well, and what such an adorable little thing this thing is, does obviously have no articulation. I don't think you would necessarily expect this thing to have articulation. Well, it doesn't have any posability whatsoever. It certainly has some nice sculpting, I have to admit, both to the chest, to the arms, and also to the back. And again, carrying over the same colors as the larger version of Spider-Man, just in a smaller scale. This might actually be one of my favorite trinkets that comes included with this particular release of Spider-Man. Now, I don't actually recall Spider-Man having moving eyes in the game. He very well could, but in this case, they did include these Spider-Man eyes. I can't help but feel like these are the exact same eyes that we got with the Spider-Man Homecoming and also the Iron Spider. They do certainly look the same. Actually, it comes with two variations. Slightly more closed, slightly more open. And then just to get access to Spider-Man's eyes, I'm just going to grab the figure just very carefully. Sometimes if you're not careful, inadvertently, the eyes pop out on their own. Just pop them out like that. No force required. You don't necessarily have to be breaking anything. And just pop that back into place. I kind of actually dig, now that I'm really seeing these, I kind of like the more closed eyes on this particular Spider-Man. It's not to say that I'm sure I'm going to change my mind yet again, but it does give you a couple of variations. Like I said, there's the other eye version if you wanted to swap it out. Maybe I will settle on a compromise. All things considered, just pop this eye off. And again, you just slide it up. When you don't want them to come out is when they do. There's actually a little corner section right here. You can see there's an indentation. The best way to do it is just pop your finger into that section. Just pop it in on an angle, and then you can usually just grab the other side like that. Take the other eyes. I may find myself settling, I think, on the medium lensed eyes, like those ones. I kind of dig those ones. Again, if you wanted to go default to the regular sized eyes, you can certainly do that as well. But then, of course, Spider-Man does come with those. I'm sure to no surprise, you probably know Spider-Man comes with a series of interchangeable hands. Yes, he does. Quite a lot, actually. Currently in the sockets, I've just got some defaulted closed fist hands, but I'll show you the other variations that he comes included with as well. No Spider-Man would be complete with, of course, without web shooting hands, and this Spider-Man, oh, I just happened to drop that one. We'll have to go pick that one up in a second. This one has actually a pair of web shooting hands. So slippery, and they slipped right out of my fingers. He also does have a pair of wall grabbing hands. Those are always a good go-to for Spider-Man, especially if you get really creative and display these guys in your detolfs with Spider-Man kind of crawling up the side of the detolf wall. Kind of considered doing that a couple of times. He does also have the previously looked at hand for holding the webs, or ideally also for holding the smaller tooled equipment, little accessories like the Vulture jammer and the iPhone. He has those as well. And he comes with a couple of just gripping hands. I mean, like, these hands don't do too much. Obviously, they serve a big purpose when it comes to like holding like the grenades. For example, you can wedge the grenade in between the thumb and the pointer finger on this particular hand. And you can also do that as well with the trip mines. The trip mines can kind of hold in between his fingers as well. A nice little fun accessory for the hand department, at least. He does also come with a peace sign. Little peace sign for Spider-Man, and he comes with a couple of other kind of, like I said, grabbing and gripping hands as well. He actually comes with a total of, well, he comes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11. I think that's actually right. 5, 6, 9. Yes, he comes with 11 interchangeable hands, and then he also comes with a bunch of webbing as well. Pretty much, if you've seen one tray of webbing, you've seen them all. In fact, I think this is the exact same carbon copy tray of webbing that you probably have gotten with every single 6-scale version of Spider-Man that you've gotten from Hot Toys. And I don't think they're going to be planning on changing that anytime soon. So I figured if anything, I'd just keep the webbing inside and I would just pull them out individually, and you can see it comes with a series of just single strands of webbing. And then he also has the hooked webbing. A couple of webs that look like they've already been shot out of his web shooters or kind of in mid-flight. And then last but certainly not least, he's also got the little fun funnel webbing, which again, any one of these, just attach the underside like so. Just attach it into place like that. So there's nothing really that has drastically been changed here. They certainly did not reinvent the wheel when it comes to the web shooting, actual web constructs. There's nothing different. There's nothing really unique about it. But at the end of the day, it's not really the webbing that makes Spider-Man. It's Spider-Man that makes Spider-Man. And really what a neat Spider-Man this is, just for some size comparisons and just so you guys can see how drastically different really this suit is. We'll bring in the Spider-Man Homecoming Spider-Man. Not a bad Spider-Man at all. But I really like this one. And I like this one a lot. One thing I really like that they did bring to the table was some much needed white. Normally, Spider-Man, if anything, is traditional blue and traditional red with the odd little hint of black. But this was a Spider-Man that now started bringing some white to the table. You can see it really primarily standing out here in his forearms and most definitely here in his torso. And I really think that is what brings something different to this particular costume and really does make it a really neat looking overall design. The costume definitely takes something different, thinks outside the box, and the end result is, like I said, a really stellar looking design, something of which I've never really seen before. Again, the logo on the back, I can't help feel like patterns itself from the original Amazing Spider-Man costume design, the one that Andrew Garfield wore in the first film. The very elongated legs seems to kind of be something that seems almost a calling card to that particular film. As for the costume itself, it's a tailored tight, almost kind of, it's not quite nylon, but it definitely has a stretchy give to it. It certainly does make Spider-Man very slender and very tight-fitted looking against the rest of his body. The costume itself isn't the only thing that's making him look muscular. It's actually all this additional padding that they've added to the torso. In fact, this section right here, not specifically the shoulders, not specifically the forearms, but specifically the very defined chest, can all really be contributed to the fact that he has all this additional kind of under padding. And I don't know if it's actually part of the costume itself, or if he actually has something that's underneath that just before you actually get to the 6-scale body. Before we talk a little bit more about the costume, I want to talk a little bit about the head. The head is very traditional Spider-Man. In fact, it's about the only thing that's traditional about Spider-Man on this entire design. There's nothing really that they've changed. I mean, they haven't reinvented the wheel when it certainly comes to the head portrait. But one thing I am very happy to say is that while it doesn't feel like it's actual material, this feels like it's sculpted plastic or some variation to plastic. I must say, like, the seamlessness of the head right down to the body. You can see that there is a difference, obviously. The light catches and reflects it differently from the fabric than it does to the head, but at least it's a little bit more consistent without actually having to resort to the head being a continuation where they've wrapped the fabric around the head. I really at one point hoped that they could have gone that route, but realizing later what limitations that would have caused, especially with this type of material, I wouldn't want to be moving the head too much, risking that perhaps it may start splitting the fabric. I think the smartest route they did do was to really keep like the head a separate piece from the rest of Spider-Man's body. You can see how the webbing has been indented into that, so it's not simply just drawing on that additional panel lining. They've actually grooved little caverns, I don't know if you would call them like little ravines, and they've actually painted that in. So it does give you some perspective, and you can see there's a real close-up look at the... I was so close to really say fabric, but again, it's not a fabric, it's actually just plastic. I like how there's this additional texturing that they've added to it. That texturing carries its way actually through all the rest of the costume as well, even though now we're making use of a material, a fabric, if you will. But the costume design is really, really clever. It's got some neat aspects to it where even the blue has continued shapes in there. I mean, looking at this reminded me very much of the Man of Steel Henry Cavill Superman costume, where like even the areas that would have been blue has some additional stuff that's added to it, where it's not simply just the fabric itself. If you look really close, you get a familiar sight, one of which we've seen with other Spider-Man figures, and that's sort of this basketball weaving. It's similar to the surface of a basketball, so I generally usually describe it as basketball. But you can see that it's got like a pattern all on its own. And then, of course, you've got the relatively familiar Spider-Man red strips, where, of course, they're just the straight webbing. But even like the way that they've placed the webbing is very different as well. You don't normally have a Spider-Man where like the webbing normally would carry down and then you've got the boots down here. Here you've got these just almost bladed shapes of red, and then you've got the continuation of the blue going all the way down. Even like the feet are very different than what we'd normally have seen before. I almost expect this from a futuristic Spider-Man or something even from The Flash, where the heel and the front of the foot has its own support added over top of the costume itself. It really does add a little bit extra pop when you look at the costume design as a whole. While we're actually looking at this half of Spider-Man's body, I want to draw your attention to the legs. The legs are actually quite rather defined. Well, they went the same route that they actually did with the torso. The torso is not the only thing that got some enhancements. You remember that he had some additional padding happening up here. Well, he does also have the same thing happening in the legs. Those legs aren't naturally crafted on the 6-scale body underneath all of that. They sort of cheated, and they added some additional padding. And I'm really okay with that. If it makes the figure look more defined, after all, really, the only thing that's between us and the body that's underneath all of this is just this layer of fabric. So obviously they would want to do some stuff just to enhance Spider-Man's look. And that's exactly what they ended up doing. It's really, again, only this section here, obviously on both sides. I'd love to see them actually do this for future figures, certainly ones that are muscular. Because always, you get muscular torsos, chests, that's not usually an issue. When you get to the legs, normally the legs look awfully spindly, or they look very flat, because really at the end of the day, they're only putting the fabric tight against the 6-scale figure's body underneath all of that. I really would love to see them start doing this with future figures as well, where they actually literally craft the body underneath that. Now, obviously, I know Spider-Man's not the only exception to that. There's various figures that they've done that too. Many of the Ben Affleck Batman figures, for example, they've done and added muscular bodies underneath all of this. So I understand that this isn't new for Spider-Man specifically, but I do like the fact that they did do that just to enhance the overall look of Spider-Man. So he does feel a lot more muscular than maybe he actually is. Looking at the figure's articulation, Spider-Man's head rotates all the way around, and it hinges up and down. I always feel like when I'm moving the head, if I put my hand against it or any which way, I feel like I'm almost dislodging the eye. You can almost hear it kind of rattle itself while you're moving the head up and down. It's only really an issue if you get really close to the eye, so I guess the advice could be made, just stay away from the eyes. But the head moves up and down, it rotates or hinges back and forth, and it can rotate all the way around. Some good level of articulation. And again, I like the fact they did not continue on the fabric and wrap it around his head. I think that could have caused some real limitations to a figure that's already quite limited. Here's what we were talking about before when it comes to Spider-Man's limitations. You certainly can't get him into the crazy poses that he could get into the game. And for that, I think you would want to resort to an all-plastic figure like a Marvel Legends, for example, to pull off those looks. Spider-Man has what seems almost only to be about a 45-degree angle. If you're uncertain, I would definitely say consult the guide when you do get a lot of these figures so that you know what limitations you're currently going to be facing before you start getting too crazy with poses. As you are moving the arms, one thing that's also probably quite apparent, you can probably even hear it, is a ratchet joint. You don't hear that often either. I'm kind of glad that they put that in there. But you really don't want to be bending the arm any bit more than, I would say, about a 45-degree angle. The arm can move forward very, very, very little, and it can also move back very, very little. Swivel at the bicep, a single bend. I actually thought it was a double bend, but it seems only like a single bend in the elbow. And then you can also rotate the hands all the way around. I've noticed a lot of times when I am rotating the hands are very prone to popping off of their pegs. Now, I don't know if a lot of it just is for the fact that the web shooter is so close to the end of the wrist. It's probably just for the fact also I didn't put the hands in completely all the way in, but I do notice that the hands pop off a little too frequently. He does have an upper torso crunch, and even when you crunch it, you can almost even make out a six-pack going on in there, and it does rotate back and forth. Not a lot, because again, a lot of this is going to be contained by musculature, and it's also going to be contained by the suit. The suit's really going to limit a lot of what you can actually pull off. Spider-Man's legs pretty much work the exact same way. You can hinge them out, but that's about all you're really going to be able to get from that. You can move them forward, you can move them back, and unfortunately, you're going to be hearing a lot of creaks, you're going to be hearing a lot of breaks. Those are really just the joints at work. I mean, it does seem a little worrisome when you start hearing stuff like that, or you start hearing stuff like that, but just know it's natural. You just don't want to push your limits for how far you want to be moving those legs. So again, the legs really only move to about a 45-degree angle, and about the same also, well, a little less than that backwards. Swivels at the thigh section. In this case, it does have a double hinge on the knee. And then for his feet hinge up and down. Mild rotation back and forth, mindful that you don't pull and rupture the seam on the side. And he does also have toe articulation. So that's pretty good that he has toe articulation. What you won't, like I said, will be able to pull off, what you won't be able to pull off, is you won't be able to get all those crazy poses. Even when you see pictures of 6-scale figures, and you know there's always those really neat poses that you think you can get the figure into, and then you look at them and you're like, I think I can get that figure into that pose. Resist the urge if you can. I mean, at the end of the day, figures like this tend to be quite expensive. Well, they don't tend to be expensive. They are quite expensive. And you don't want to get too crazy thinking you can get them into poses like the game, because ultimately what you're going to end up resulting in, you're going to be breaking any one of those joints in the arms, the legs, or even in the torso. And that's the last thing you certainly would want to be doing in a case like this for such a good-looking figure as Spider-Man here. Yes, I will admit, I'm a bit late to the game when it comes to having a look at the Hot Toys Advanced Suit Spider-Man. Usually with my life lately, as of which, of course now having a child of my own, usually getting reviews done and up usually can be chalked up to 1 part time, availability of time, and 1 part resources available. I think with the case of the Advanced Suit Spider-Man, it was probably a little bit of both. Hopefully worth the wait on your guys' part to check out this review. It certainly was worth the wait on my part to finally get this figure in hand, because the figure in hand is a spectacle to be seen. It really does beg the question when creators are given the opportunity, the leg space, to kind of come up with their own designs. Some of the stuff that they're able to come up with. This is probably one of my favorite Spider-Man suit that isn't canon. I mean, yes, it's canon to the game, but it's not certainly something we would see adopted into the filmverse. I can't imagine Tom Holland anytime soon trading in his classic costume duds in favor of something like this. But it definitely does open the door to the possibility of what Spider-Man could look like with a different type of design. This design is really neat because it's streamlined, and yet it's still classic, familiar Spider-Man. I really didn't think I actually would have liked white on Spider-Man either. But look at it. Having the white emblem on the front really does break an otherwise not drab color scheme for Spider-Man, because Spider-Man's never really been a drab colored costume character. But normally when you expect to see black and instead you see a big pop of white, it definitely does open your eyes to a really creative looking design Spidey. And this one is definitely one I would recommend that you add to your collection. If you have managed to add this one to your collection already, let me know down below in the comment section what you guys think of the Advanced Suit Spider-Man. It is a really neat looking design. It's limited, unfortunately, when it comes to articulation. That seems to be pretty much the calling card nowadays when it comes to 6-scale figures. They're limited, and what you're spending on them, a lot of times it does get frustrating, especially for a Spider-Man, that you can't really do the stuff that you want to do with them, unfortunately, just because of the limitations that a 6-scale figure usually brings with it. But still, despite the fact that I'm probably going to be keeping this guy in a bit of a museum pose, or nothing any bit more extreme than probably what you're looking at right now, I still really adore this costume, and this is really one of my favorite Spider-Man currently in my collection. If you are looking to add this one to your collection, if it is still available, you can head on over to www.alteregocomics.com right now and order yours today. If it is sold out, however, you may want to periodically check over at their website to see the new stuff that they've got regularly stocking on their virtual shelves. Alter Ego Comics is my go-to place when it comes to picking up 6-scale figures, specifically because they do offer free shipping on many of their 6-scale figures. They also offer double boxing, which is really a big plus for me. That seems small, really, when you think about it. But if you ever have weather conditions being a plaguing problem when it comes to packaging arriving, a lot of times I've gotten packages from Hot Toys directly or other companies directly. And because they don't actually put it in a secondary box, I've gotten water damage to the actual packaging of the Hot Toys, and that's no good. Alter Ego Comics does do a double boxing system. So like I said, they're going to put that box inside of a larger box, and they're going to put some packing material in there as well to guarantee you that when you do get the figure right to your doorstep, it's going to look just as good as when it did when it left the warehouse. Their customer service is some of the best, and if you are interested in picking up anything over at Alter Ego Comics right now, you can use the coupon code SPOT15, which will save you $15 off your minimum purchase of $150. It's one coupon code per household, so if you guys are interested in picking up maybe not necessarily this one, because maybe they don't have it in stock anymore, but if you are looking to pick up anything from their website, why not save $15 off your purchase of $150 or more? You can't beat that. Today, again, we were having a look at the Hot Toys Advanced Suit Spider-Man. A little late, but we were having a look at him nonetheless. If you guys are new to this channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button down below, and periodically make sure you swing on over to the homepage to check out and make sure if there's any videos that you may have missed along the way. We're going to have a whole bunch of 6-scale figure reviews coming up, lined up for the coming weeks, so keep your peepers peeled for that, and I'll see you guys next time.